Hi, everyone. I'm Nikki Patten, and today I'm excited to share with you my action research capstone project for my master's degree in literacy education through Arizona State University. While in graduate school, I taught for Mesa Public Schools in an enrichment program for homeschooled students. Because we don't teach the core subjects, we get to design a wide range of elective classes. I teach a lot of active and embodied courses like theater, dance, writing, and garden lab with students that range from fourth grade to eighth grade. I'm going to talk today about my class, Art of Argument, a public speaking class. Going into this semester, I had taught this class in the fall too, and I noticed that students could explain their ideas conversationally, but they struggled to use academic and domain specific vocabulary in their writing and speeches. Even when I modeled it, students were not independently using this kind of language. In The Republic by Plato, he emphasizes that education is to prepare students for civic life. I believe that it's really important that students are able to clearly communicate and defend their ideas to participate fully in society. That's why I'm passionate about making academic language accessible for kids. My research question was, how does co creating an interactive word wall impact students' use of academic vocabulary in argumentative writing and speeches? Andrea Honigsfield's Growing Language and Literacy strongly influenced my project. She explained that interactive word walls support Tier 2 and Tier 3 vocabulary through active engagement with language. I realized that this approach could definitely help my students learn domain specific vocabulary. Other researchers argued that literacy grows most when students are actively constructing the meaning instead of just passively receiving information. They also encouraged teachers to start small and gradually release ownership to the students. The literature I read also emphasized how academic vocabulary supports confidence and critical thinking. And in previous years, I noticed that many of my students struggled to present their ideas confidently. And I thought that this could be due to having fewer opportunities for structured discussion and debate just by being homeschooled students. These ideas led me to design an interactive, student centered word wall focused on argument writing. This was our blank canvas, ready for students to fill with sentence starters, vocabulary, and evidence language examples. First, I identified the vocabulary that I wanted the students to learn that connected to claim, evidence, reasoning, counterargument, and rebuttal, but I did expect them to discover even more phrases and words through their reading of mentor texts and sample essays. My goal was to guide the students without limiting their ownership or creativity in the process. Rather than simply posting vocabulary myself, students identified and they categorized words from the mini lessons and what they read. When students suggested phrases like, this shows or this suggests, we then talked about how the phrases were examples of reasoning language. Next, I modeled how to embed academic language during our mini lessons through shared writing events that they helped create. As students wrote and discussed arguments, they independently referenced the interactive word wall. Success! Students also used graphic organizers that mirrored the mini lessons, which created a portable word wall right there in their own workspace. To study the intervention, I collected baseline writing samples, other drafts, student reflections, and observational notes. Many students began by writing informational texts instead of argumentative, because few of them understood what Lucy Calkins called the big, bold claim. Still, students did use reasoning language like because, which showed that there was a lot of opportunity for growth. Over 4 sessions, I tracked academic vocabulary using a tally chart that focused on argument language. And here, the A's represent absences. So we did have to cycle through lessons, or concepts rather. Students frequently reference the word walls during writing and discussion, but the most meaningful growth it extended beyond the vocabulary. Students began seeking quieter places to focus as they wrote, and they expressed excitement about writing and they were building confidence as communicators. One of my students had to leave early and she shouted, "What? I've been looking forward to this class all day." To analyze my data, I organized vocabulary categories into Google Sheets to compare baseline and final use of academic language. This allowed me to create graphs demonstrating growth in students' use of academic vocabulary through the project. Students began incorporating more academic language into their writing, especially the counter arguments and rebuttal, which was a pretty new skill for many of them. This is some examples from an eighth grade student who consistently used the word wall and participated in mini lessons and demonstrated that she was writing more sophisticatedly every week. But because this class was fourth grade through eighth grade, I wanted to include this student's writing. He's a typical fourth grader, and he might even be considered a developing writer. But by the fourth session, he was making claims, explaining reasons, and even acknowledging the other perspective. This final student initially showed very little interest in writing, but by the last session, he successfully incorporated all of the sentence stems. He also reminded me of how important student choice is when selecting prompts. This project helped both my students and me recognize that supportive resources are everywhere and that student voices matter. Initially, I questioned whether this project produced enough hard data. Uh, The real impact, was not seeing the students develop the real impact was seeing the students develop confidence, advocate for their learning needs, and take ownership of the academic language instead of avoiding it. Ultimately, this project showed me that the interactive word walls become meaningful literacy tools when students get to help create, use, and revisit them regularly. Thank you for your time.